Okay, it is 5 o'clock. Please rise and join me for the pledge of the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We'll begin with the open forum. Is there anyone that would like to address the board at this time? Okay. I would look for motions to approve tonight's agenda.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. All those in favor of tonight's agenda signify by saying aye. Aye. Pose same sign. Motion carries. Next, we have the consent items. What are the wishes?
I'd like to request 5.2 moved out of the consent items.
Say that again, please.
Item 5.2 to be pulled out.
Okay. It's my understanding that we vote on that separately then.
Yes, directly after, and there's no second needed for my request.
Yep. Okay. Then I would look for a motion to approve the consent items except 5.2.
So moved.
Is there a second? Okay. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Pose same sign. Motion carries. Well, then we'll address 5.2. And what is the question?
It would be the minutes from last meeting, June 18th. I have a couple corrections. I don't know if we want to bring them up or I can just read it to you. It has to do with the consent portion of the last meeting, so I have a couple corrections there. To more accurately reflect the happenings. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4. I believe it's the 5th paragraph that starts with Chair Peterson. I would insert before Peterson Hansen to approve agenda toward the end of that.
Say that one more time.
I would insert before Peterson Hansen to approve agenda the following. Board Member Marine requested items 7.2, 7.10, and 7.14 be removed from consent agenda. Chair Peterson called for questions to be asked. The items were discussed. Chair Peterson moved approval of consent agenda with 7.16 and 7.17 removed. And then we can leave that next piece, Peterson Hansen to approve agenda. And then discussion was held. And then Chair Peterson amended motion to correct minutes and bring back at later minutes. And then the motion carried 6-0. And then Chair Peterson amended motion to exclude 7.2 from consent agenda. And then the rest can stay. Peterson's score to approve. I went back. I knew that my requests were not reflected there, and I wanted my requests reflected there because this is the legal record of the meeting.
Say that again.
My requests to remove those items, those 3 items, were not reflected. So I wanted those reflected. But then I went back to listen just to find out what is the most accurate wording to propose. I didn't want to just propose a correction without any proposal. So those would be my proposed corrections, or if the board chooses, we could bring it back at a later meeting again. But I did request that the 3 items be removed, and there was discussion in the consent agenda, and that should be reflected.
So what are the wishes of the board?
Mr. Chair, can you hear me?
Yes.
You sent an email to us this weekend asking for these type of questions to be handled by yourself and staff. So I'm not sure why we don't have that resolved before the meeting, because I can't follow all of these changes verbally, and it's not because I'm remote. And so, again, I ask if the chair sends an email out asking for these type of things to be handled before the meeting, I think it's a fair question to ask why that wasn't done.
But the problem is it cannot be handled. It has to be handled in a meeting.
Mark, I forget what this policy is, but the policy says that any item can be pulled without a second. So the policy supersedes everything, so
No,
unless we change the policy.
It would be nice to see right now the changes that are being asked. I mean, I believe that those changes are true. It would just be nice to see them in writing and not have to, because we're going to have to bring this back.
So Mark, are you suggesting that what Jill is proposing as amendments to the last, or a previous meeting's minutes should have been reflected in the document that we received for this meeting? You want me to say that
Yes.
again?
Yes.
Are you suggesting that the changes that Jill suggested at our last meeting relative to the minutes of a previous meeting should have been reflected in the consent items that we have in front of us now?
I believe that's correct.
I believe
So
that would,
I believe the changes that are being asked are true. I just think it would be so much easier if they were in the packet as this is going to be brought up ahead of time. Doesn't mean that and that does not violate the policy. But these long verbal changes that we all have to follow mentally, because we're either going to vote on it or we're not. It's going to be hard to vote on because none of us have seen it.
True.
it would be impossible for me to know what the minutes were, to find errors in them before they were in the board packet on Friday. So one thing that we could do would we could get the packet a day early to have a day's buffer to find any errors that we might want to address, but it would have been impossible. I would have had no knowledge of what the minutes would record and that they would not record my requests. I'm happy to present my correction proposed in a written format for a future meeting, but I am not in support of approving these minutes as they stand.
I don't think any of us are the way it sounds, so we'll just table that and get look at getting a revision.
Just a point of clarification. We send the packet out on Friday. So the packet goes out Friday afternoon, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Ashley's title, what's your title, Ashley? In the school board. So Ashley works as your assistant. So if we have a mistake in the minutes, we can certainly call up my office. We can certainly call up Ashley and say, Ashley, we have a mistake. Could we make these adjustments to the minutes, and we will prepare them and replace them, and we can let the board know ahead of time that this is coming on the night before.
I think that would be ideal, yeah.
I would strongly recommend that we do this in the future. Thank you.
And I think it's important that we do follow our own policy, because we do have policy about consent agenda, and it requires no previous questions to be asked. And
I understand the policy and we're following the policy, but I think it would be nice if we could correct it prior to, is the point, I think.
mm-hmm. I will make every attempt to, but that will not always be possible. And that is what meetings are for. So I will make every attempt in the future to do that, but it will not always be possible.
Okay, we're gonna,
And I think we do need a motion then to postpone it until the next meeting. So I will move postponing 5.2 or whatever number it may now be, okay, to our next meeting.
is there a second to the motion?
Second.
Any further discussion?
That would be just to move this out of the consent, the 5.2 to the next meeting, or do you mean, Jill, your corrections you would like to have in the next meeting?
It's already been moved from the consent, so it would be actually moving the entire item plus the corrections.
Okay, all those in favor of,
Just one quick clarification. So Jill, will you, send an email with all your verbiage so we can take a look before the next meeting?
Yes, I believe I can do that. Otherwise, I can send it to the chair, and maybe I should send it to the chair, and then he can disseminate would be the best way to do that.
I would suggest you send it to Ashley.
So I'll send it to Ashley, copy the chair, and we'll do it that way. Thank you.
Thank you.
okay, all those in favor of the motion to postpone the approval of 5.2 signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Moving on to reports, Dr. Funk.
Real brief tonight. Next slide. We have our filing period opening up for the school board. Filing period is 31 July to 14 August. And so if you are interested in refiling or know some people who are, we will have 4 spots up for election. Thank you.
Okay, school board members, Angie?
I have nothing to report.
Just had the pleasure of having a luncheon today with our new Southwest Middle School principal, Chris Dibble, and police liaison, Ted Herman, who is healing from his injuries, and had a nice visit, and I think Chris will be a nice addition to Southwest Middle School.
Nothing different than my last report. Thank you.
Have had several meetings with the Education Foundation, and we had this, one of them was to screen the applications for grants that teachers apply, for which teachers apply. And we had a record number of applications this year, 20, in the neighborhood of 20 plus. And we're really in a position to grant 10, so that was a little bit difficult. Lila, we actually, by virtue of being able to manipulate certain funds, we granted 13 of those applications. And Lila is very good, Lila Oz is very good at communicating with all of the applicants and suggesting to those who did not receive the grant different avenues they can pursue in order to fund their projects. So pretty positive there. Once again, the Hall of Fame, Athletic Hall of Fame banquet is coming up shortly, July 27th. Check out the website for tickets if you're interested. And that's it.
I don't have anything to report. We don't have any student members, so Janice?
Hello, Janice Jeffrey. The ALEA has been active with Wind Down Wednesday in June. Gave away about $250 in books to young students, kids that were at Wind Down Wednesday. It sounds like kids and parents enjoyed making bookmarks and doing origami. Due to the rain, there wasn't a lot of read aloud, so they're hoping that at this next Wind Down Wednesday that they can spend more time reading as well to the students, and hoping to give away another $250 in books.
And Wind Down Wednesday is this Wednesday again, so just a reminder there. So hopefully we can stay away from the rain. Okay, moving on to efficient operations. 9.1 is a resolution to award the sale of general obligation school building bonds, and we have Kelly Smith from Springstead here.
members of the school board, Dr. Funk, Deputy Superintendent Volz, and Chair Peterson. I'm Kelly Smith with Springstead, and we're your financial advisors. Today was a big day for Albert Lee Area Schools with a bond sale for your 2018 A and 2018 B bond issues. I have some handouts for you. I'm going to go mainly off of the first document, which is just a summary of the sale. I always like to start out just a little history on the markets. The bottom graph on this first page shows the history of general obligation bond 20-year bond markets over the last 5 years. You can see that although we're not at historic lows right now, we are still very low in terms of 20-year obligations. And we refer to the red line there. These are GO bonds, not revenue bonds. So still a very competitive market, although there's been some ups and downs in the last 4 months. You can see some dramatic up and downs recently, so there's certainly been volatile action in the market. To the second page, you had very good response to your bond proposal today, having 10 bids for the 2018 A issue and 7 bids for the 2018 B issue. And again, we act as your financial advisor. We don't buy or sell these bonds, but we process the sale of them. So we handle the competitive bidding process. Underwriters put in proposals that they have, and then we evaluate based on the true interest cost what's the best proposal for the district. And the true interest cost, or the TIC, is the interest cost taking into consideration time value of money as you move forward. So we use that consistently in all the comparisons. So for the 2018 A bids, we had Robert W. Baird submitted the lowest bid, and we're recommending they be awarded that issue. And for the 2018 B, J.P. Morgan Securities submitted the lowest bid, and we're recommending that they receive the award for that 2018 B issue. In that first 2018 A, we had a very tight bunch of bids. Amongst those 10, there was only a difference of 0.161% from top to bottom on those bids. So that says you hit a market where there was definitely an interest in this issue, and had very competitive 10 proposals that came your way. For the 2018 B, we had 7 bidders there, and the gap was larger, and to the good. The good news was we had also projected that the interest rate for these would be higher than they came in. They came in at 2.95%, and 6 weeks ago when we gave you, the district, some recommendations, we were looking at 3.5%. So cabs are not utilized on a very frequent basis with school districts in Minnesota. So we're never quite sure how they're going to be received by the market. And good news today was you received excellent bids on those. So in that chart in the middle there, you see in the recommendations we provided the district in early June, we were estimating the 2018 A issue to come in at 3.49%. We came in slightly under with the R.W. Baird bid today of 3.455. Now that doesn't sound like an awful lot. It's 4 basis points, 0.04%. That's not a lot, but over 20 years, that's $84,000 in savings to the district. So excuse me, not $84,000. It's $150,000 savings to the district. So considerable that 4%. And then for the 2018 B issue, we had estimated 3.5%. They came in well under that at 9.59%, 2.95%, thank you. And that resulted in interest savings of $590,000 from what we had projected. So all in all, a very good good sale date for Albert Lee area schools. There are 2 resolutions in front of the board tonight, and we'd ask that they be acted on separately, and they're resolutions, so roll call vote. And before you get into that, if they are approved, then we will work with the underwriter to get the funds to the district on August 16th. You will have the remainder. Today, as part of the bidding process, you received a 5%, a good faith payment, so that's already here, but you'll receive the remaining funds on August 16th, and then you're ready to move on to that exciting project for the community. Lastly, I'd just like to thank Superintendent Funk and Deputy Superintendent Volz and Ashley for all their help. This is, we don't just throw a sale out there and it happens. There's a lot of data that is generated and collected for your school district. We put out these 2 packets. If you ever want some good reading sometime about your district, there's a lot of information in here and about your community. Interested underwriters want to know what's happening, what's the story of your district. So it's an important part. We were asking for a lot of information from these individuals and appreciated the support we had in getting that information. And finally, just on behalf of Springstead, I want to thank you for letting us be part of this process, and very happy to report these good results to you tonight.
Questions?
Was that our, that's our new rating then, the Moody's, the AA2, or?
No, good question here. Your Albert Lee area schools has a rating of A1, but these bonds are able to be sold under the credit of the state of Minnesota, which currently has a AA2 rating. So the state of Minnesota is saying we're going to guarantee these bonds if something would happen to Albert Lee area. It's never happened, but it gives those investors some assurances that there's somebody else backing the bonds as well. So your rating stayed the same, an A1. You had a good report. Obviously, pensions are always a concern of underwriters, and we thought we had maybe a chance to move up a little with some of the legislative changes this year, but it did stay A1. So, and that's a good rating.
Any other questions, or I'd entertain a motion?
We need to do them separately, then I would
Yeah.
move, okay.
So this would be the 218A would be first.
Okay, and I would move that we accept the proposed sale and price on those two, I guess it would be to Robert W. Baird and Company.
Okay, is there a second to that motion?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Okay, roll call. We'll start with Neil.
Aye.
Jill?
Aye.
Aye. Mark?
Aye.
Okay, motion carries 6-0. The second action item would be 2018B. Is there a motion there?
So moved.
Okay, second?
Second.
Okay, the motion's been made and seconded for approving the building bonds in 218B. Any further discussion? All those in favor of the motion, or I gotta go. Neil?
Aye.
Jill?
Aye.
Aye. Mark?
Aye.
Okay, motion carries 6-0. Thank you, Kelly.
Very good. Thank you very much. Have a good evening. Thanks.
9.3 is the 2018-19 substitute teacher pay. Jim Querom.
Oh, he shut it off and everything. Okay, just go to the next slide. That's okay, Ashley. So one of the things we're looking at this year is to do a little bit different pay structure for subs. Just a little background. First off, we haven't increased our base sub pay. We've made some changes. We went to a 2-tiered system a couple of years ago, but we haven't changed our base sub pay for quite some time. And so did a survey of some of the school districts, and I pulled some data off of there. I think Owatonna sent it out. And everybody is always looking how they can increase their sub pool, right? That's just one of those things that happens as we go through time here. And I think my own personal thing is I think we have a really good economy, and people might find other occupations that they can do other than sub on a part-time basis. What we do find, though, just as for a little background, is I would say the majority of, and I don't know what the percentage is, but the majority of our sub jobs are taken by a small pool of regular subs, be they retirees, which is a good chunk of them, or people that just sub regularly. The other thing that we find, and we're no different than most districts, is you can kind of draw a circle around your town of probably 20 miles, and that's where you're going to draw from. You might go a little farther than that, a sub might, but just with the availability of jobs, if they live in Owatonna and they can get a sub job there, they're probably going to take it instead of drive down here. At a little bit disadvantage is probably the fact that we're butted up against Iowa, so it's almost like a half circle. We don't pull a lot of people from Iowa. So anyway, I did a little research, and this is going into this year. These are some of the Big 9 schools, and what their current sub rates will be going into the fall. You can see a lot of them had gone to a tiered structure in order to entice people who sub some to sub more, and some who sub a lot to sub even more. And we're no different than that. So you can see we're at 110 for a base pay for a sub. And then if you're a retired teacher from the district, or you do 240 hours of subbing the previous year, then you'll be a tier 2 going into this year. And we'd like to change that, and I'll get to that in just a minute. We've also done some other things to try to reduce the amounts of subs needed. We placed an ad in there. I think oftentimes people don't know if you have a 4-year degree, you can sub. It doesn't matter what it's in. As long as you have a 4-year degree, we can get you a short call sub license if you have an interest. And so we've done that. We've also, over the last several years, tried to limit some of our staff development on high sub days, Mondays and Fridays with personal days, that kind of thing. We try to stay away from that because that increases the need for subs that we might not be able to fill. So we've done some things there. And I would say one of the things that I would give my hats off to the teachers is our current staff will step in often to sub, and especially at the secondary level where it's a little easier with prep time to be able to sub. They really help each other out by doing that. So our fill rates are pretty good. They're probably not as good as they have been this last year, but we're looking at how we might be able to entice people to do a few more days. And if all of our subs do 2 more days a month or 1 day a month, that's really going to help us out. So with that, what we're proposing is, if you want to go to the next slide, is actually go to a 3-tiered system. So we would keep that base pay at 110 this year, but we would expand to a 3rd tier. So basically 2 things. Go to 3 tiers, so they have the opportunity, at least by 2nd semester, to get up to either 120 or 130 for a full day. And also move that time in which they could increase, instead of having to do 240 hours over the course of a year and wait to the following year to move up, that they could actually do that at semester break. So if somebody starts the year at this fall, if you approve this, at a tier 1, and they sub 30 days first semester, then they're a tier 2 second semester. If they start the fall as a tier 2 because they're a retired teacher, or they did 240 hours last year, then at semester break they could actually move up to tier 3. Okay, so and again, the objective here is to maybe increase our sub pool some, although we're only going to get so many people within a so many mile radius to do it, but is to maybe entice or give a little bit of a carrot out there for those that do sub already to maybe do a little bit more than they have in the past. So, any questions about that?
Since it's entirely possible that I may gain extraordinary financial benefit from this, would it be appropriate for me to recuse myself?
I will also have to abstain from the vote since I'm a sub, but I do have a question just on Tier 1. So currently it says 240 the previous school year, and then the proposed is 240 the previous semester. So does that negate the previous school year then?
No, if someone has done 240 last year, they will start as a Tier 2 this fall. Yep.
How long has it been on? Not carryover hours, but how would you call it?
2 years. Yep. I think it's 2016 is when 16-17 school year we made that change.
Projected percentage of current subs that would move into 3, would that be 25% of our current subs, would it be like 55%?
Oh, I'd have to look at it again, but I would guess it would probably be less than 25% the first time around. When we.
Okay, any other questions? So it looks like only 4 of us can vote, so, but I'd entertain a motion.
So move to change the policy.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor of changing the substitute teacher pay as outlined or proposed, signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Okay, Jim, you're still up with policies for annual review.
So one of the things we are trying to be more cognizant about is getting through all of our policies and doing a review of them. That's why you're seeing a bunch of them here, and get on a schedule of doing that on a regular basis. So we go through that. So you'll see a lot of them that there are no change, but in order to keep that renewal date fresh and make sure that we're looking at them, you'll see a handful of those on the next agenda item. But the first one, the staff notification of violent behavior does have one change in it. And Ashley, if you go to the second page, the actual statute 121A-64 does have in it now, including any documented physical assault of a district employee by a student. So MSBA is recommending that we include that obviously in the model policy. So you'll see in C and in D where it talks about including any physical assault or injury to a district employee as well. So that's the only change to this policy, and again, the statute has that reflected in it now, so it will be in the, we're proposing, we put it in the policy.
I think there was an incident in St. Paul School District this last spring.
Yep.
I'm sure that's why that's there.
Yep.
So what are the wishes of the board?
It looks good. I think overall, just a couple questions. How often do we have to implement this policy? I mean, I don't mean to put you on the spot, but
MSBA does all the legal review, and they're current on what's happening within the schools statewide, and then they also take a look at how statutes change. And so then what they do is they forward on to us saying, here are the updated recommendations that we're making to the model policies that we have. And so if we have adopted one of their model policies, we then take a look at the changes and then we bring it forward. This is a pretty straightforward one. I know Angie emailed the policy committee members today. There's a few more that are fairly detailed that we'd like to meet with the committee in sometime in the next week or two that do not have such a simple change as this one. So that's kind of the process. And then the rest of them that we have that you're going to be seeing here in a little bit, they have it within the policy that they should be reviewed annually. And so that's what we're doing.
Janice, not to put you on the spot or anything, but how do you think this policy is working? Since you're here today.
I think the policy is helpful to maintaining the safety for staff and students. The the ALEA would like to work with the district on fully implementing this policy.
Okay, this is an action item. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion's been made and
Aye.
seconded. Any further discussion?
I had a question. So what kind of things are issues when it comes to implementing the policy?
I think some clarity right here is the history of violent behavior, okay, and including any documented physical assault of a school district employee by the student, all right? Now that that's in policy, that might not necessarily be the case if we didn't have that in policy. So I think that's a clear, much clearer indication of what we want to do. And we have had conversations with the ALEA this past year on this very issue. So we're pleased to see that they've put that language within the policy.
Okay, any
May I?
further discussion? Yeah.
I think there's still concerns with or without the new language on fully implementing it. I'm not sure that teachers are feeling fully informed on all the incidences of violence.
Well, I think that can be worked on further. So, call the question then. All those in favor of the change in the policy signify by saying aye.
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 Pose same sign. Motion carries. And then policies for review with no revision. Jim?
Yeah, again, these are ones that usually have some type of notification or review requirement to them on an annual basis. However, none of these have any proposed changes from MSBA. So I'm just bringing them to the board as a kind of a chunk of policies since no proposed changes.
Questions?
So policy 514, the bullying prohibition policy, that is only for students, is that correct?
I believe so. Usually it talks about
Yes.
Student. Oh, there you go.
And so currently we don't have a bullying policy that would be applicable to employees or staff or any of that nature.
I'm not aware of a school district in the state of Minnesota that has such a policy.
I do know the city has a similar feeling policy that has to do with I don't remember what it's called right now, but it's just a respectful workplace policy. And so that is something that I would be interested in learning more about if there is. Are you aware of any kind of respectful workplace policy for school districts?
I'm not aware of that.
Maybe I'll look into that a little bit. Thank you.
Okay. Motion?
So,
Just,
Vote, I think it just needs to be annotated within the minutes that they've been reviewed.
and it's just a good policy to do this on an ongoing basis, to review all policies. So, what are the wishes of the board?
Move to approve.
Okay, is there a second? Second. We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
So is this for all 9.5 or just the family mental?
All of them. Okay. All those in favor of the policies with no revision as outlined, signify by saying aye. Aye. Pose same sign. Motion carries. I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Is there a second? Second. Meeting is adjourned.